Hello and welcome to Vienna, Austria for today's IFR flight from Vienna to Bologna. I am Island Sim Pilot, FAA instrument rated pilot, and flight sim enthusiast. We are here as Austrian Flight 549er today. And our off time is in 15 minutes, so we'll get ourselves going here. First thing we want to do is put the plane into hotel mode, get things rolling. Busy day today at Vienna. Flying today with a pretty good size load. We've got good size load for the day. We're looking at flight level 220, which is kind of in the upper range of what this airplane can comfortably do. I flew down here yesterday from, where did I fly from? Berlin. Which is kind of cool. Flew an ILS approach in here, which went very, very well, which is not always a given in this airplane. So we'll import our flight plan. We will set our flight plan and wait for the HSI. I'll go set fuel, set payload. I already have our METAR, so we'll get down here and get to the meat and potatoes. Alright, first things first. Perfect init page. Where are we here? Menu, there we go. Let's get our PAS init set, GPS, and then sensors initialized. Now we'll go over to the flight plan. The other thing we are going to do is to start our ACARs. And you can hear the radio calls behind, or the cabin crew in the background there. Alright, here's our routing today. We'll be taking off runway 16. Flying the Route 2B departure. Whoopsie daisy. Route 2B. Doesn't look like there's any transition, so we're good to go there. And then let's move it along here down to LIPE, which is our destination. We'll be flying. You know what? I'm now realizing that I didn't select a approach. At least I don't think I did. Let's see here. I did not. So what shall we fly here? I think we're going to fly the ILS Zulu runway 12. Let's have a quick look at the chart. Looks beautiful to me. ILS Zulu runway. No, that's the wrong one. I just said one thing and clicked something else, but it didn't seem to register. Anyways, alright, ILS Zulu runway 12. So we'll pull up our charts here. ARAC got updated today. ILS 12 Zulu. Unload this flight. Lots of cool updates to the yeah, and there's ILS Zulu runway 12. If you use the desktop app for Navigraph and set your flight up in the desktop app first, then anywhere else you open your flight, like I just added the ILS Zulu 12, like you heard me 10 seconds ago. and it's added it already, so all the charts are going to be there, which is great. Alright, we'll pull up the airport chart here, show you where we are. We're in peon territory out here. We're out on the this is a really cool airport, but we're out in the tarmac because we're not one of the big boys. So let's see here. The BAME 5M arrival. Transition none, via none, all good to go. So what we want to do now is have a quick look through the flight plan, make sure everything's correct. So LOWW runway 16, 269 is the waypoint right in here, W384, W172, Rupert, Gers, Radley, what else we got here, Riffin, Badop, Rosca, there's Tulik, Arvad, Eklip, all looking good. Now Bamek is the next one, so we can get rid of that right there. And then we've got Kreva, which is the start of the ILS approach. No, it's not. It's a big fat lie. We've got Kreva, P730, 725, 721, 515, MDUD. There's an interesting waypoint. And there's ILS 12, Zulu. That's a Dolo. A runway waypoint, which is good. So I like flying RNAV approaches just because I don't have to tune radios, just a little easier, generally speaking. But with the ATR, RNAV approaches are not real good. So alright, let's see, departure runway 16, let's have a look at the departure. It's pretty straightforward. Things I want are the transition altitude, which is 10,000 feet. I don't know why, of all the, so the airport elevation is automatic, right? But the transition altitude is not, which I find kind of strange. I mean, if one thing, I don't know. Let's go to the per minute page. Cruise altitude is higher than 500 feet, believe it or not. 22,000. Our alternate today is LIRF. Let's take a quick look. If I were really flying this flight, I clearly would have, you know, like you would, okay, here, so it's southeast of us. So we're gonna figure, I don't know why it always does this. Southeast of us, I mean, to my knowledge, Italy's pretty flat, but IFR low altitude charts should give us an idea here of what kind of altitudes we can expect. There's flight level 100 right there, and this, I mean, you know, dispatch would do this if this was a real flight, but just want to have a look around, kind of see what the altitudes are. Flight level 110. That gives us an idea. Right, flight level 110. So this would be, let's see, easterly. So we're looking at an odd flight number, or odd flight level. So I'm gonna go 13,000 if we fly to our alternate, which I don't anticipate because the weather is pretty good. All right, let's look at our weights. So we loaded the weights on the EFB earlier. If you just press and hold here, these two buttons, the weights come up, and then it gives you your gross weight, and then it gives you your takeoff trim. Takeoff, or your trim is right here, so I use my Honeycomb Bravo to set that. I got the trim button on my Bravo set. So we want 1.5 up. That matches it. That warning you heard was because if you hold the trim for any longer than 2 seconds in this airplane, you start getting that warning. Alright, I do not see any ATC, so whoopsie. 122.8. Looking good. Nav radios. Now I like putting in VORs if I have them, because oftentimes ATC will ask you your position relative to a VOR, your position and distance. So 110.4 I'll put in here. Enter, enter, 110.4. See if we have another one along our flight path here anywhere. There's one. And it's hard to see. 116, what? 116.2. I'll put that one here. 1162. Enter, enter. Let's get hit the bearing 1, bearing 2, and that gives you these indications here, which tell you your distance from your vortex. These are technically, well, they may not be vortex, they're probably not vortex, they're probably VOR DMEs. TACANs are for military use. Alright, what do we got here? What do we got here? Bologna. We got 117.1, so I'll put that in the backup up there for later. Alright, and the overlay.
Wind traffic with Air 410 Alpha, picking off runway 16, wind traffic.
Alright, now 4664. Enter, transponder, squawk altitude. R flight 459er, or 549er rather. Alright, so I think we're pretty good to go here. Not too bad in terms of time to set us up. Take a quick look at the departure procedure just for fun and games. Rupert 2B 134.675. Airport elevation 600 feet. Transition altitude 10,000. RNAV we've got. Rupert 2B off runway 16. This is this one here. We climb on a heading of 159er. The WW269 and then hang a Ralph. 4.9. So this is, so 90 knots would be 450 feet per minute on a standard departure procedure. Standard departure procedure climb is 300 feet per nautical mile. 90 knots would be 1.5 nautical miles a minute, so it's 300 times 1.5, it'd be 450 feet a minute. So this is about right. So it seems like a standard climb gradient. Initial climb clearance 5,000. There's a reason why we read the charts. So now we've got some information that can help us. Our initial climb is going to be 5,000. Put that in. There's 5,000 initial climb, and our initial heading is going to be climbing a track of 159, which I'm sure is runway heading. So there's the heading bug. So we'll bring that around to 159er. And little does anybody know, but we look like we know what we're doing. They don't realize that we don't know what we're doing, but we look like we do, which is what counts. So let's map out our taxi here. 11,000 feet. I can probably go. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna look at here. What is this? This is 10-9C. Let's go to the airport here. Alright, let's go taxi chart 10-9C. Sometimes the parking chart is more useful than the taxi chart. So we're parked here at F51. We'll back out, come over here to Whiskey. Alright, we're gonna go Whiskey EX23 Echo. Alright, and then we'll come back here. Once we're on Echo, we're gonna come down. We'll take, well, maybe we can just, it's Whiskey down here. I wish I could see this area right here. But you know what? I think we're gonna go Lima. Look at this, Lima right here. That's beautiful. We're gonna go Lima straight. We're gonna go Lima Bravo 4. Make this easy. Lima Bravo 4 for taxi. Plenty of runway. Alright, altimeter is 1020. So we'll set the, well, QNH. I say altimeter out of habit. 1020 is QNH. Did I set up? Let me double check, make sure I set up the, I don't think I did. Set up the performance data. Alright, 104, 104, 110. Perf in it is good to go. Alright, so I did set it up. Alright, so in which case, we'll come over here. Switch that to auto. Bring this up to comm. Alright, I think we're in pretty good shape. Initial altitude is set. Now that we've loaded the weights in the flight plan, everything is going to match up here. Our payload is within limits. Takeoff trim is good. So, we're looking good. Alright, so one of the quirks, if you can call it that, of the ATR at this point is the fact that I confirm the takeoff data. I'm doing this kind of out of order, but that's alright. Let me get myself situated here. Make sure I can reach me pedals. Alright. Let's go to the before propeller rotation checklist. CDLS on FMS takeoff data is confirmed. Trims 3 axes, green, green, green. Tail prop is removed. Doors are closed. Let's go seatbelts and beacon. Seatbelts and beacon. Rotating beacon to let everybody know to expect some action here. Alright, propeller brake. And this is always like a bit nerve-wracking with this airplane. Alright. We're good this time. Engine instrument. This thing's already running, so we can bring it up into the auto setting. Alright, and I would like some engine instruments myself right here to start the #1 engine. Alright, we'll turn the fuel pump on. Starter is set. Let's hit the starter button and up we come here. Alright. Yeah, see, this is the thing. You get this generator fault with this airplane right now. Oil pressure is coming up. Oil pressure in the green. ITT is coming up. And coming back, so we're in good shape. So I can bring the #1 engine up to auto. And see, we've got this DC generator fault, which we shouldn't have because we shouldn't have it. Oh, we do. I'm going to turn the taxi and takeoff lights on because we don't have anybody to blind in front of us right now. Alright. Toes are on the toe brakes. Let's come over here to aircraft. Remove the ground power. Remove the wheel chocks, which is going to give us an error, but it's not a... It's a false error. So if you've got the throttles in idle, it's going to give you that DC generator error, which stinks. Now let's come over here and get a look at where we're going. So we're just going to come here and straight out. We're going to take this right. So I guess we're going to be taking whiskey, whatever this is here, whiskey, and then Lima. What is that? Yes, whiskey Lima. So make sure we get our taxi correct. Whiskey Lima Bravo 4, runway 16. And one last check to make sure we don't have ATC. I'm sure we don't, and we don't. Alright. Come over here to Me Charts. Alright, we're good to go. We are good to go. Before taxi checklist. Let's take a look at that. FWS recall. Nothing to worry about. Cockpit comm hatch is closed. CL1 and 2 auto. Anti-icing as required. TRU on and checked. Anti-skid test. And we pass. Flaps. Set and selected and indicating. All good. Nose wheel steering is good to go. Alright, so now I'm gonna release the parking brake. And whoop, no. See, that's one of the you have to release the parking brake with your toes off the brakes and then put your toes on the brakes. I don't know why, but you do. So, by the way, this is a really cool airport. Beautiful rendition of the airport if you're interested. Alright, we're good to go. It's time for the ATR's party trick. Alright, taxi and takeoff lights. We'll test the brakes here in a second. Alright, so there's a diamond sitting next to us. Alright. Vienna traffic, Austrian 549er via taxi to runway 16 via taxiway Whiskey Lima Bravo 4, Vienna. I don't know why people call their taxi instructions over, or their taxi, you know, over the over the radio. I don't think anybody cares. But anyway. Alright. Reverse we go, and we get get the DC generator fault. Alright. Alright, let's get this thing turned around here. Oopsie daisy. Alright, manual. And see, as soon as you get the props out of idle, or the power out of idle, you will start getting, you get the hydraulic pressure back. And the problem with losing the hydraulic pressure is that the brakes are hydraulic, so if you lose that, you aren't going to have brakes. I'm a big fan of having brakes myself. Speaking of which, let's test them. Okay. Always test your brakes. FMC is good. Takeoff config test is good. Alright, let's get moving here. So. Weather couldn't be any nicer. Some people have mentioned that the thrust seems to have been, taxi thrust doesn't seem to be what it once was with this latest update, and I have seen some issues with this airplane. Used to taxi like it was on fire. And for the first time in the history of Microsoft Flight Simulator, a ground vehicle is waiting for an airplane. So. I just realized I'm probably probably supposed to come out here and go along this way. That's not going to get me to Bravo 4, which is my goal in life at this point. So let's go IAS mode and nav mode. Just going to put nav in the backup and the heading hold in active. Runway heading is indeed 159er, which is what we've got set. So far so good.
Vertical info Bravo Zulu, established runway 11, 6 miles out.
We're pretty much straight out here for Bravo 4. So keep our heads up here. Alright, takeoff briefing has been performed. Let's release the gust lock. Flight controls. spoiler left, spoiler right is working. And remember, you cannot cross this double yellow line without ATC clearance. You can cross the dashed side. You can dash across. You cannot go across the double yellow, which is the way I remember it. Flight controls are good. Transponder TCAS are both good. Boost function as required, don't need it. Airflow is good. Cabin crew alerted. Engine bleeds normal, as they'll say in Boston. External lights, let's go strobes. No, strobes are already on. Landing lights are on. Lateral flight director bar is there. Rudder cam. There we go. Make sure that's centered. We are good to go. Alright. So, here we go. I'm just going to make one last check. Make sure there's no traffic coming in runway 16, and there is not. Alright. Make sure my ACARS is running too. It is. Sweet. We are ready to go, folks. Vienna traffic, Austrian 549er departing runway 16. Be a straight out departure to the south. Vienna. I always stumble at some point during my radio calls. Alright. Runway looks clear. I don't see any traffic. Always check visually. It's always a good idea. So, get out here on center line. Alright, now get ourselves squared on the center line here. Come to a stop. Alright, heading indicator checks with the runway number. Toe brakes are set. Looking for notch on the throttles. Notch it is. Engine instruments are green. Brakes released. Hold that nose down. $70 knots, my controls. This airplane likes to just fly itself right off the runway, which is beautiful. Positive rate of climb. Gear is coming up. And IFR, you don't make any moves until 400 feet AGL, which is 1,000 feet here. Alright, let's set this to climb. And I'm comfortable here going yaw dampener autopilot. Let's make sure the autopilot is doing what we think it's going to do. I don't have IIS mode engaged. Alright, airspeed is climbing. We can put up the flaps. Gosh, it's beautiful here. It really is. And there we go. Taxi takeoff lights off. Co-pilot can stare around a little bit. He's got nothing to do. Alright. I'd like to get some altitude beneath me before I run that checklist. I know I've got the main points of it set. Now we can go here on our RNAV departure chart. Top altitude is 10,000, so we can transition altitude is 10,000, so we'll clear ourselves up to that. 10,000. Hey, look at there. Alright, let's run that checklist rather. Landing gear up, no lights. Flaps are up and indicating. Power management is climb. Engine bleeds are good. Taxi and takeoff lights are off. Altimeters will set here shortly. And there we are, folks. It was a relatively uneventful departure, which is how we like them. So beautiful, this area. Alright, let's get back up to the cockpit here. 5,000 climbing flight level 110. I'm going to fly the departure as published because there was a lot of mentions in the departure about noise abatement, so they probably, and there's some mountains around here, so probably a reason why they have drawn up this this departure the way they have. And after 10 seconds of contemplating that, I'm going to hit direct Rats. No. And execute that, and we'll just skip. So, 2 seconds after saying I was going to fly the departure as published, I've decided not to fly the departure as published. Alright. And let's climb ourselves, clear ourselves up to our cruise altitude here, flight level 220. By the time we get that high, we're probably going to be ready for top of descent. So, yeah, there's no reason to fly out here and come back. Alright. I think this is such a cool airplane. From a pilot's perspective, it's really well automated for what it does. We'll look and see what that lake is right there. It's really well automated for what it does. It's not overly complex for it's not overly complex for for what it does, what it's intended for. It's just a really nice kind of mixture of automation and simplicity. Let's see what's on our flight path today. We're going to be going over Wiener Neustadt and then Graz, which is that GRZ. And we're going over Slovenia and then north part of the Adriatic Sea down into Bologna. Cool flight. So the flight today is 10,000 feet, and altimeter is the standard. The seatbelts are coming off, landing lights coming off. I see a lot of people, I don't know if there's maybe a different regulation in Europe than there is in the U.S. regarding landing lights, but and I'll see pilots in the U.S. doing it too. But you often see pilots turning the landing light. I'm talking sim pilots here, turning the landing lights off. Kind of when they turn the taxi and takeoff lights off on departure, and that to me is a no-no. There's Wiener Neustadt below us. The purpose of the landing lights being on is to make you visible. So here's the airplane with no landing lights. Let's get back over here. Turn the landing lights on. Yeah, so usually there's a poor example. So the landing lights are right here. And I mean, you can't, I suppose it's not really in the sim something that you can really see that well. But in a real airplane, the landing lights are pretty darn bright. And the whole point is just to make yourself more visible. So the FAA recommends that you keep your landing lights on under 10,000 feet, which I fly a Piper Cherokee and a Cessna 150, and so my landing lights are always on. And a lot of people will tell you, a lot of real pilots will tell you, turn your landing lights off, you don't want to burn the bulbs out. I'd rather not kill myself. I can replace the light bulb, It's all about visibility under 10,000 feet and just making yourself more visible to other aircraft. Alright, procedure is completed. It's just about making yourself more visible. Look at the overhead panel here. Turn that off. Everything else is looking good. Everything else is looking good. Have a quick look around the cabin here. Nice view out the left side. Even nicer view out the right side. Look at that. Just gorgeous. Just gorgeous. So that is Schleibingkirchen. How about that for you? Schleibingkirchen, Austria, and Warth, W-A-R-T-H, Austria. Really beautiful. So, radar's looking clear all the way down. How far to Graz? 13? That's not too bad actually. So, this is... So I'm flying this flight for Deutsche Lufthansa Virtual, which check our systems. So everything good there. Oil pressures are good. Temperatures are good. Fuel flows are good. Fuel's balanced. Everything good. Cabin altitude is pressurizing. Alright. Doing good there. Cool. So Deutsche Lufthansa Virtual. So they have, I basically joined Lufthansa Virtual so I would have a reason to fly in Europe more, because there tends to be more ATC in Europe. Even though there isn't any today. I mean, I'm sure it's going to pop up along the route here. But generally speaking, flying in Europe on VATSIM is a bit more challenging. You know, most of my flying is in the Caribbean, obviously, island sim pilot, but there's not all too often a lot of ATC down there, and lately there's been really a dearth of ATC, which in some ways is not bad, because a lot of like the kind of longer haul, it's not long haul, but longer flights that I do are like from Miami to the islands, Miami to St. Martin, Miami to, you know, Point Pitre, Miami to San Juan, Miami to Piarco, etc., etc., etc. And I'll do those, like I'll take off before I start working, get up to cruise, and just let the airplane cruise for 2.5 hours while I'm working, and then do the landing phase, which is, you know, from top of descent in the 737 to touchdown is about 30 minutes. And so not having ATC online kind of makes it a little easier to do that. And it doesn't really take away that much from the VATSIM experience, because part of VATSIM, you know, a lot of people say, well, if there's no ATC, I'm not going to fly in that area. Well, number one, build it and they will come, right? Like, if there's no pilots there, ATC is not going to be there either. But if there's consistently a good number of pilots, you're more likely to have some ATC, or get ATC more often. And but the other thing, of course, is you just, you know, treating things as non-towered fields. So I mean, when you don't have ATC on VATSIM, you just, you know, it's a non-towered field, no big deal. You know, you train what we call transmitting in the blind, which is you know, transmitting on CTAF without the expectation of a response. You know, and that's your, you know, position reporting and that sort of thing. So, you know, so you are communicating with other pilots and so on. But anyway, I think, you know, the whole flying in Europe thing was, for me, you know, to kind of make it more of a challenge, and you know, because radio comms is a big part of IFR flying, and if you are, you know, if you want to challenge yourself, I mean, there's a lot of things in IFR flying wither rather quickly, and radio comms is one of those things. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to fly here in Europe. So random aviation knowledge. I was just thinking as I was talking before. So CTAF, right? Common Traffic Advisory Frequency. That's what we use on VATSIM 122.8, which in real life is a very common CTAF frequency. And so you might have heard of Unicom. You'll see that on charts sometimes. You'll see some charts that show a Unicom and a CTAF. So what's the difference between CTAF and Unicom? I'll give you 10 seconds to think of the answer. There's got to be a way to put these up and down. I like the fact that this is down. It's kind of cool, but I would like to be able to put it up. Okay, so the difference between CTAF and Unicom. The difference between CTAF and Unicom is when you transmit on CTAF, you are not expecting a reply. When you transmit on Unicom, which is not a tower frequency, it's not a controlling authority, as they say. When you broadcast on Unicom, you do expect a reply. And so what situations might you have a Unicom that you would use instead of a CTAF? And a couple answers. One is one of those situations is, for example, if you're trying to get fuel arranged at your destination airport. So let's say you're flying in somewhere that has a Unicom and also has a tower frequency. So obviously tower frequency is who you're talking to for your clearance, your landing clearance. But in between that call, you might call up Unicom on your number 2 radio and say, you know, Unicom Cherokee 56125. They'll call you back, and you say Unicom Cherokee 125. Be arriving in, 20 minutes, and we'd like the fuel truck on the ramp for refueling. And they can do that for you, or you can ask them if maybe they have if the weather's no good, maybe if they have a hangar, etc., etc. So you can talk to, and that's generally who you're talking to on that Unicom frequency in that situation is the FBO, which is the fixed base operator. That's the company that runs the airport. So they run the hangars, they run the fuel, they, basically the services at the airport. So in that situation, you're calling up the FBO and telling them what you need or what you would like. And that's one situation. Another situation might be if there is no ATIS, Automatic Terminal Information Service, or Automated Terminal Information Service, which is your weather. Let's pull up a chart here. Well, we were going to pull up a chart. ATIS on your chart. If you don't have an ATIS frequency to get the automated weather, and there's a Unicom frequency, that Unicom frequency may or may not be attended by anybody, but it may just be a pilot that's hanging out at the airport, and you call Unicom and say, Unicom, you know, Cessna 4753 X-ray, you know, 25 miles to the south, inbound, you know, let's say N21 might be one of your, I think that's one of the airports around here, but anyway, and just say requesting the weather, and then if anybody on Unicom is listening, they can either take a look at the windsock or whatever and tell you what the weather is. Or, you know, maybe there's other traffic. They can, you know, if it's not a field you're familiar with, they can tell you, you know, we're using runway 15 or whatever. So CTAF is what we call transmitting in the blind, which is you don't expect a reply, and Unicom, you do expect a reply. Or at least you're hoping for a reply. Are you bored yet? I can do this all day. And I was thinking actually on that subject of me and my rambling. I know there's a couple people out there that listen, you know. Most, you know, you can see your analytics in pretty good detail on YouTube, and you know, the majority of my my viewership, so to speak, is the landing phase, takeoff and landing. That's what people watch. And you know, I do a lot of yapping in between, you know, trying to sprinkle in, you know, useful aviation knowledge. And there's 22,000. Let's go to cruise power setting. Yeah, I mean, some people listen, some people don't. Most people don't. But I was kind of thinking about the fact that if you do listen to my long-winded stories, or like the, you know, the aviation knowledge, as I tend to call it, like I'm starting to get to the point where if you've listened to a lot of my videos, maybe I'm starting to get repetitive, and I don't know. You know, I obviously think a lot about flying. I enjoy flying. I enjoy sim flying quite a bit. And I don't know whether my aviation career is going any further than it is. Like, you know, I'm an instrument rated private pilot. You know, I very much enjoy flying, but I guess kind of the question for me to ask myself is, you know, am I gonna get you know, am I going to get a commercial pilot certificate? Does it make sense for me to get a commercial pilot certificate? I mean, it's, you know, more training is always good. Makes you a better pilot. But at the same time, like, a lot of my flying over the years has been training, you know, or building up hours for a particular rating, you know, building the number of hours to get, you know, your private, building the number of hours to get your instrument rating, building the number of hours to get your commercial certificate, which you know, I've got the hours for it. Minimum hours are 250. You know, but then at some point the question becomes like, okay, you can, but kind of what is the sense? What is your goal? But anyway, getting back to start setting up the ILS frequencies here. Getting back to what we were or what I was talking about. We're not talking about anything. I'm talking. Alright, square the heading bug. It's kind of so. I was thinking about whether it would make some sense to at least do some ground school, like do more commercial pilot ground school, and maybe even, you know, probably rehash some IFR ground school and stuff like that, for the purpose of having more information to kind of share. You know, rather than telling you guys about transition levels and, you know, the things I've mentioned 1,000 times on this channel. I don't know, maybe so kind of like dual purpose, you know, stuff to help me learn, but at the same time, you know, things I can share with you guys on here, because I think a lot of let's go heading mode, switch this to ILS 1, that is 113 on the ILS course. So twist this knob until this number is 113. There's 113. Now I'm going to flip it back to FMS and go back into LNAV mode. Because I like sharing what I know. I would venture to guess that every once in a while somebody finds it useful, which would be cool. So let's put the ILS frequencies in the backup. This should be good. For some reason it's not going to work. Alright, so put the ILS frequencies in the backup. So for this particular approach, we're actually going to need 117.1. We're actually going to need one. I don't know, I was just wondering why this jumped. So 1089 is the ILS frequency. It should actually be versus 113. 1089. Put this there. And then 1089 here. In the backup. Reason we need 117 is 117 is a part of it's the VOR on the field that is part of the missed approach procedure. So but anyway, I like sharing what I know. I don't know a whole lot. I mean, I don't know a little either. I'm a relatively knowledgeable pilot. See this this METAR is an hour and 20, almost an hour and a half old. If you want to challenge yourself, I know a lot of people really like flight simming because for whatever reason, medical, financial, life, having kids, marriage, job, etc., makes it, kind of took away their dream of becoming a pilot. And so a lot of people are really enthusiastic flight simmers for that reason, and that's awesome. If you want to challenge yourself as a quote-unquote flight sim pilot, learn how to read METARs. It's really not as difficult. It's like anything. I mean, it's challenging when you start doing it, but it's standardized, and so curiously enough, the reason, so you figure, why don't they just write this stuff out instead of putting cab OK and VRB02KT, like what, why don't they just write this stuff out in English, so that everybody knows what it is without having to be, it's like legalese, for pilots, pilotese. Well, the reason is because this format and how it's written out, it was for teletype and for whatchamacallit. The term is slipping my mind right now. That thing where they tap it out. Beep, 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 beep. Oh, it's gonna drive me nuts. Can't think of it. Morse code. For Morse code, teletype, and that sort of thing. So they needed to keep the number of characters to a minimum for for ease of transmission, right? And so that's why this stuff is written like it is. And so a real it's cabin announcement. So a real quick rundown. So LIPE is the airport, 08 is the day of the month, 1450 Zulu is the hour and minutes, 1450, it's now 1619 Zulu. There's a reason why we do everything in Zulu in aviation. It's so that everybody's on the same time. Might be flying across time zones, etc. This is variable at 2 knots. I can't think of the legal definition of variable. There is one. Cab OK. Ceiling and visibility OK. And CAV-OK is, I believe it's clear below 5,000 feet and a minimum of 6 miles visibility. So whenever you see 6 SM, 6 statute miles visibility, that means visibility is essentially unlimited at more magnitude. I should probably look these things up and review them before I start telling you, because it may be 10 statute miles, but I'm pretty sure it's 6 statute miles. And why is it so? Why is visibility in statute miles and flight distances are in nautical miles? What's the difference between a statute mile and a nautical mile? I haven't told this story in a long time. So nautical miles account for the curvature of the Earth, right? And so when you're, if you're flying 1,000 miles, the Earth will curve over that distance, or 2,000 or 5,000, and it's not a straight line. You're going, let's say this were the Earth, you're going around it, so it's not a straight line distance like that. It's essentially a round distance, or a rounded different distance. It's a curved distance, and so that's what nautical miles are. But when you're talking statute miles, when you're talking visibility, statute miles, it's just a straight line distance, because the longest statute mile visibility you're going to get is 10 nautical miles. So they're not going to tell you 13 nautical miles visibility, or 13 statute miles visibility. Whenever they say whenever they give you a visibility number, it's in statute miles, because it's just a straight distance. So, ceiling and visibility, okay. This is in Celsius. Temperature / dew point. Temperature 30. Dew point 12. What does that tell you? I mean, okay, so yippee. There's the temperature, there's the dew point. Why do I care? The reason is the difference between these two numbers will tell you some things. So 30 and 12, the difference is 18. Whenever the difference between the temperature and the dew point is less than 5 degrees or less. So let's say this was telling you 30-26. Okay, it's telling you CAV-OK 30-26. I would be very skeptical about that CAV-OK, and I would be very skeptical that it exists at that time, but I would be even more skeptical of it remaining that way, and that's the important thing. And the reason is, when the temperature, they call this the temperature dew point spread, 30 and 12, the temperature dew point spread right here is 18. If the temperature dew point spread is 5 degrees or less centigrade Celsius, then you can expect what the FAA refers to as restrictions to visibility. And what does that mean to normal people? That means fog, clouds, etc. And so one of the things you want to be looking at in terms of these two numbers is, first of all, what the difference is right now, and second of all, if you're flying like a couple hours, you want to know which direction that's trending, in in particular if it's close, right? So let's say it's let's say it would be 30 and 20 next time this updates. So an hour and a half ago, it was 30-12. It's 18 degree spread. And let's say it updated right now and it said 30-20. That tells us that temperature dew point spread is getting narrower. And that trend tells you which way the direction of the weather is trending. If this number is getting closer and closer and closer over a period of time, then you can expect worsening weather. If it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, you can expect better weather. Now, QNH is 1017. QNH is what value you would set your altimeter at to get field elevation. I like QNH more than I like altimeter settings. So let's look at the TAF. So similar type thing here. This was issued at, this is a terminal aerodrome forecast. It was issued at 08, which is today, at 11 Zulu, and they're good for, I should know this, but I forget how long they're good for. Or how often they get updated. I think they get updated 6 times a day. And this tells you how long the forecast is good for. If there's a long period of good weather or similar weather expected, they'll do what they do here, which is 0812 to 0912. So it's basically good from today at 12 Zulu to tomorrow at 12 Zulu. And the general expectation for the weather is variable at 5 knots and cab okay for the weather. Winds they're expecting to change, becoming at between 13 Zulu and 15 Zulu today, becoming 070 at 10 knots, and between 18 Zulu and 20 Zulu, becoming 240 at 5 knots. So the wind, they're expecting the wind kind of to shift around as we get closer here to, well, as we get closer to what we're getting to. So, but if you want to, and this is always standardized, the METAR is location, date, winds, weather, temperature dew point, QNH. METAR, or TAF rather, is you get your location, when it was issued, the time period it's covering, and what the weather is expected to be, and any changes. So if you want to become a better sim pilot and a more knowledgeable sim pilot, learn how to read METARs. It's not that hard. Take some doing. I'm not gonna say it's easy, but it's useful. It's really useful information. And the other thing is, if you learn to read these, even if they had it written out, it would take a lot longer to understand it than for me to understand. It takes me 2 seconds to know what that whole thing says. So now, let's see, we've got 23 minutes to top descent. Your captain is going to take a brief break to go use the restroom. Be right back. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, your captain has returned. I'm just getting my seat settled here a little bit. Get myself comfortable before I release my track IR. Alright, so this is the Adriatic Sea, which is really pretty cool, in my humble opinion. Alright, so this is the VOR on the field, so once this becomes active, we'll have an idea of our distance to the field, which will be good to know. Looks like we'll make it by sundown. I haven't even looked at the wind. Alright, we got a tailwind of 24 knots, that's good. Ground speed almost 300 knots. So there's kind of like endless minutia you can learn about flying, and I find it endlessly entertaining. I really do. I enjoy flying. I enjoy, you know, the whole process of learning. I mean, there is a saying that a good pilot is always learning. And that is very true. So, you know, as I said earlier, who knows whether my real aviation career, I'm 47, I'll be 48 in December, so it's kind of unlikely that I'm ever going to unlikely that I'll ever fly professionally, like in a, you know, kind of a crewed environment. Not a crude environment as in bad, but a crude environment as in multiple pilot. So set the course over on this side as well. Course of 113. Here we go. And yeah, anyway, I like talking about flying. This type of job would be a cool job to have. I think being an airline pilot, depending on where and what you fly, either can be or isn't an interesting job. Like, for example, I mean, I don't know that like flying around, you know, the Midwest would be very interesting to me as a pilot. Maybe it would be, who knows. But I certainly think that flying like these short haul type flights in places like this would be awesome. I think it would be so much fun. You know, like in the Caribbean, in Europe, I think it'd be pretty neat. I think if I had my choice of ideal pilot job, I think long haul would be pretty awesome. I think I'd enjoy being a long haul pilot. Alright, unfortunately I can't do the briefing with you guys because of this nonsense. I don't know why it's not working, but it's not. So I'm going to do my briefing. Unfortunately, I can't share the charts with you guys. There's no controllers around. Nobody to talk to. Thankfully, I'm pretty good at just talking to myself, as you probably noticed. So, let's have a look at our charts here. Alright. What have we got? Airport elevation, 123 feet. ATIS. Let's get the weather. So, one of the things that about how charts are laid out, 1620 Zulu is the weather. QNH1017. Winds are 300, variable 010. Temperature 29, dew point 14. So like I was saying, that number is actually getting closer. So it was 30, temperature 30, dew point 12 an hour and a half ago or 2 hours ago, and now it's 29 and 14. That's not a big change. The thing that is a big change. Oh no, winds are 340 at 3 knots. Variable from 300 to 010. Okay. Okay. So we're landing runway. Yeah, I mean it's not ideal. It's not ideal. We're landing runway 12. It's 3 knots. It's 3 knots, and it's expected to get. It's expected to come around to 070. So I'm comfortable with the winds. All right. Next thing that's important for us. Next thing that's important for us is to get a good view of this Star Alliance aircraft that we might be able to use for a screenshot. Alright, so the next thing that's important, let's see, what is the bottom altitude going into runway 12? It's 2,500. Well, there's 3,500, 4,000. Alright, let's go, let's set the altitude about 5,000. It's about what I think they're going to give us. Was our initial descent. It's not what they're going to give us as our initial descent if we were talking to ATC, but we're not. So once we get into VNAV path mode here at top of descent, it's going to tell us what altitude it wants us to be at. It wants us to set next, and it's going to, I think it's going to be 5,000. So transition level by ATC, which I can't stand. Alright. The reason I can't stand it is because you don't know what it is. I want to know what my transition level is. And as I always say, remember, transition level is for landing. Transition altitude is for departing. Alright, let's brief the approach here. Alright, ATIS is 134.875. We already have ATIS. Look at this, beautiful. Final approach course 113, that's set. Glide slope intercept is 1335 at D3.8 of the. That's gonna be a steep descent, isn't it? No, 3 degrees. Okay. Glide slope intercept is 1335. Decision altitude is. Let's see, what category are we? There's another thing that's worth learning. So, approach categories. A is 0 to 90 knots. B is 91 to 120, which is what we're going to be, okay. C is 121 to 140. D is 141 to 165, and category E is 165 and above, and that is smoking, folks. Anybody who's took the King instrument course knows that saying. So we're category Bravo, so our minimums on this approach are going to be 320 feet. And it's so in the ATR you set it as an MDA, even though it's a decision height. And the difference between an MDA and a decision height, minimum descent altitude is usually on a, well, it's not usually, minimum descent altitude is on a non-precision approach. It's an altitude you descend to, and then once you've reached that altitude, you go along at that altitude level looking for the runway or the runway environment. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. I always talk about runway environment. What's the runway environment? Runway environment is any of your approach light systems. You know, in this case, is a high intensity approach light system. Your VATSI or PAPI. The VATSI is the visual approach slope indicator. The PAPI is the precision approach path indicator. VATSI is the 2 lights, red and white. PAPI is the 4 red and white. PAPI is more accurate, is one way of putting it. We are in VNAV path mode. See, and I guessed right, flight level 50. I've actually never seen it where you can set it straight to VNAV path without doing a little bit of a descent first before you hit top of descent. Usually you have to put it in vertical speed mode until this magenta rectangle appears, and then once you see that, you hit VNav. But in this case, I saw the rectangle, so I said, hey, just press VNav and see what happens. And lo and behold, look at this. I pitch right over and make a 1,500 foot per minute descent. How's about that? Check my rudder pedals here. Alright. So we have begun our descent. So the runway environment, any part of the approach light system. In this case, there's also REILs, which are runway end identifier lights. Those are the two blinking lights either side of the end of the runway. Or your rails, which I just learned this one yesterday actually, runway alignment indicator lights, which I think is what they call the runway edge lights. Here we are, VOR 117.1. We are now 34.2 nautical miles from the airport. And one thing you got to be careful with in this airplane, and I did it yesterday, is make sure you don't exceed, this. It's not really make sure you don't exceed this number. What you don't want to exceed is 245 knots indicated, because if you do that, it'll go into pitch hold mode to prevent you from overspeeding, and you'll wind up high on the approach, which is not good. So we're in a descent, so let's come here and put TCAS to below. And I suppose at some point we can start doing a descent checklist. What do you think? FWS recall. All good. Landing elevation is automatic in this airplane. Let's check our performance numbers here, which we have not done, because we are bad people. Just want to keep that number in sight so I can see what we're looking at. Alright, transition altitude, I'm going to use 6,000. QNH is 1017. Winds are, what did I say? Winds are 340 at 3, no gusts.
18,000 feet.
Alright. So when we get in close to the approach, we can activate the approach speed. So we'll come back here. 26.1 nautical miles. At 25 nautical miles is when we want to make our first radio call. You just read the number at your tail to tell you which direction from the airport you are. We are northeast of the field. Oopsie, I want to go the other way. Let's see. Bologna traffic, Austrian 549er is 25 miles northeast of the field. Inbound ILS Zulu runway 12 Bologna. There's a lot of Italian people right now going, what's this guy talking about? Getting back real quick to FMS nav data. Alright, decision altitude is set. So minimum descent altitude is you descend to a certain altitude, fly along level until you see the runway environment or don't see the runway environment. Usually it's there's a missed approach point. And once you hit that missed approach point, if you have not seen the runway environment, then you then you go missed. A decision height is an altitude on a precision approach ILS. RNAV is not legally a precision approach, even if it's got ILS minimums, like 200 feet. An ILS or PAR, which is a precision approach radar approach. That's also considered a precision approach. But a decision height is a specific altitude on a glide slope, like an ILS, precision approach, where you hit that altitude and make a decision. And your decision is, do I see the runway environment or do I not? And if you don't, you go missed. If you do, if you see the runway environment but you can't see the runway, you can then descend down to 100 feet AGL above ground level. And again, that runway environment is at kind of any of the lighting systems around the touchdown area of the runway, the end of the runway, the approach light systems, any of that. If you see any of those lights, you can descend down to 100 feet. Don't see any of that, gotta go around. And don't mess around with decision heights. Don't go peaking, guys and gals. Peaking is how you kill yourself. And what I mean by peaking is a lot of people will do it particularly on like maybe the second approach. Like let's say you fly an approach and you go missed. And so you're on your second approach. You come down to 4,000 now on this.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just left our cruising altitude and started the approach toward the port. It's requested you fasten your seatbelts and making sure it's tight. Please don't forget to switch off your...
You're on your second attempt at the approach. And now you're a little bit stressed. And you get down the decision height and you don't see anything, and you should go missed, but you sort of think maybe you see something and you want to have you just wait a little, a few extra seconds just to see. Don't do that. Don't do it. Alright, let's activate those approach speeds. So there's 170. I'm going to bring the power back here. Nav radios. VOR ILS. I want 108. 9, both sides. Can you please switch that? Thank you. So that's the reason we overshot that turn, is because we were going relatively fast. So we're getting off Echo or Golf. To the right here. Alright, now MDUD is our initial approach fix, so that's what we're looking for right there. Alright. So I don't mind keeping this speed here a little bit. There's 5 and what? MDUD is Bologna traffic, Austrian 549er turning a 15-mile left base, runway 12, Bologna. It's gorgeous down here. Alright. Now we don't want to go 190 either. So I'm happy to get down to about 170 knots and keep it there until we're on this long final, which we're going to hit here. Alright. Okay, 170 is where I want to stay, so I'm going to bring in just a little bit of power. You just want to kind of keep an eye on that trend arrow. Of course, when you make a turn, you're going to lose some airspeed because you are using the horizontal component of lift and removing some of the vertical component of lift. Now we can come down to 2,500. We can also, MDOT is our next waypoint. We can arm the approach. No. Heading mode. Nope, sorry. Don't do that. Need to come around to heading 113. I needed to have that set up a lot earlier. Alright, localizer and glide slope. Okay. Alright, speed checks. Flaps 15. Bologna traffic. Austrian 549er 12-mile final runway 12. Bologna. Alright, arrival briefing. I did this yesterday. I'm spending too much time talking. Seatbelt lights and landing lights. Altimeters. (1017). Cabin altitude. Good. Before landing checklist. Alert the cabin crew. Alright. Bologna traffic, Austrian 549er, 10-mile final, runway 12, Bologna. Alright. 7 miles. I'll bring the gear down.
Ladies and gentlemen, for landing, we can request you to adjust the backwards of your seats and turn up right position again and forward of your tables. Thank you.
I'm reading my ILS distance right here. This will eventually be the runway number here.
2,500.
Alright, I'm gonna go gear down. Flaps full. And yes, real pilots run checklists. Checklists are what keep you alive. Power management, too low speed is good. Icing AOA, external lights are fine. Alright. Now I want that trend line right about where that pink arrow is, or the magenta arrow is, so I know I'm on my speed here. Alright. Bologna traffic, Austrian 549er, 5-mile final, runway 12, Bologna. I have everything captured. Gear down indicating, flaps down and indicating So what I'm going to do now is something fun. Let's fly the airplane.
Verehrte Fluggäste, werte Grenzland, bitte bleiben Sie angeschnallt, bis wir unsere endgültige Parkposition erreicht haben. Bitte beachten Sie, dass Sie für die Landung nach Kabine stehen müssen. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to land. Please remain seated until we have reached our final parking position. Please notice the cabin lights are being turned down and
Trim is very kind of effective in this airplane. You gotta kind of pay attention to your trim indications or your trim usage, because it will get you off what you're looking for. Getting a little bit low here. It's okay because we've got some energy. We'll trade some of that energy for altitude. Remember that the
1,000.
VATSI is not always the same glide slope as the approach, as the ILS. I've got the PAPIs in sight now, so I'm going to use them. So I guess if I'm going to use them, I may as well get 2 white, 2 red, right? There we go. Bologna traffic, Austrian 549er, short final, runway 12, Bologna. Alright, just a little bit of power out here. Because I'm high, and I'm a little bit higher. My speed is a little bit high. So now I want to bring some power in. There we go. 2 white, 2 red.
400.
Okay. Beautiful approach.
300.
Speed is good.
Approaching minimum. 200. Minimum.
Continue.
Minimum. 100. 50. 40.
40.
30.
30.
20.
20.
10.
10.
Okay. What you saw right there I mean, the ground physics in the sim are not the best, but I'm not going to use that as an excuse for everything. What you saw right there is very typical of what happens to people when they land. Is most landing accidents are not landing accidents, they're loss of control on the ground accidents. Get the airplane on the ground okay. But you're not necessarily able to control it after you touch down. So, gust lock, flaps up. Now, it would be mighty useful if I had any idea where I was going to park this airplane. I guess we'll go over here and peek around, right? Bologna traffic. Austrian 549er is clear of runway 12. Bologna. I see some good signs over here. All right, so let's turn our landing lights off. Turn the strobe lights off. Could park there, but I kind of like being down here a little bit. See a little bit more of the airport. So I'm gonna park it right here. Even though that spot looks more interesting. Okay. See, that's... Remember how I told you how the hydraulics cut out and the brakes don't work? Yeah, right there. So let's get up here. Alright, prop brake's ready. Prop brake is set. Takeoff lights coming off. Rotating beacon off. Get rid of those now. Let's come up here. Turn these off. Leave the oxygen on. Good thing for people to breathe. Turn this off. Alright, and right engine is in idle. Prop brake is engaged. And strobe lights, dun, 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 all good. And we can put all this stuff. Alright, and here we are in Italy, folks. Really pretty cool airport. Look at that. Is that a McLaren? Pretty cool airport. Really beautiful airport, actually. Let's see the little rail car there. Really neat. It was a cool approach. I thought that was really pretty. Coming in here. Beautiful airport. Really like this a lot. I think I'm gonna make Bologna a more regular stop. Plus I like Bologna. I like me some Bologna. So we're good to go. Let's have a quick look at the ACARs. We have to shut down engine number 2. Because otherwise it won't, the ACARs won't recognize the plane as having, or the flight as having been finished. So I'll turn that off. Good to go. Alright, let's see. ACARs. Flight may now be ended. So let's see what we had. Touchdown at 165 feet per minute. Pitch 5 degrees, roll 1 degrees right. Not too bad. Not too bad. So we will file that PIREP. PIREP has been filed. And another non-flown flight for Deutsche Lufthansa Virtual has been taken off the books. Why would nobody have flown Vienna to Bologna before? What a cool flight. Yeah, so anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Welcome to Bologna. Enjoy your stay, and I will see you next time.